Awesome, man. That's good. So you're training this afternoon?
Yeah, training this afternoon. Looking forward to it. It's been a busy week, so just got to keep going.
How often do you train over there?
We train a lot, to be honest. Obviously, depending on when the game is and the dates. Usually, if we've got a Sunday game, we occasionally might get a day on a Wednesday or Thursday off. But this week it looks like we've got a full preparation into the game. So yeah, pretty busy.
Yeah. Do you train just once a day, or do you have like double sessions now and again as well?
Yeah, double sessions are usually earlier in the week, so maybe like a Monday or Tuesday we'll have a gym session and
Yeah.
maybe sometimes occasionally on a double field session. So yeah, it's pretty full on at
Yeah.
times and pretty busy. Yeah,
It's good though. What a way to live
good.
a life, huh?
That's it. That's it. Wouldn't want it any other way.
Yeah, fantastic. So that brings me, and I'll go back to the start here, but obviously we've got Michael joining us. He's in Malaysia now, and you've come from Sydney's NPL. That's the last place you were before you went there. So my biggest question, or what I like to understand, is how do you go from the NPL in Sydney to playing professionally in Malaysia? Like that, the behind the scenes of how does that actually happen?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to be honest. How it all sort of eventuated for me. Obviously, I was I'll go back probably a year or two earlier. I was in Hong Kong playing in the Premier League over there for a team called Pegasus FC, and I was progressing quite well over there and doing quite well. But obviously, we had a thing called the COVID-19 pandemic that sort of put a lot of things to a halt, and especially in some of these Southeast Asian countries, there was a pretty heavy lockdowns in these countries. So I was sort of, forced to come back home to Australia a little bit earlier than what I was previously expecting, and then signed for Sydney Olympic in the NPL. Sort of was training there was training on my own for about 6 to 8 months, and then got the call from Ante Juric at Sydney Olympic, and yeah, sort of jumped there. Just wanted to get some game time and some exposure, and then obviously with the in and out of lockdown and different things like that, it sort of was a bit difficult to, I guess, jump to maybe the A League or elsewhere back overseas. So
Yeah.
I decided, I kept staying at Sydney Olympic and stayed patient, and eventually got the captaincy at Sydney Olympic in my second year, and then in the second year had a really good season, both team wise and individually. We won the NPL Premiership with Sydney Olympic, and made Team of the Year for Sydney Olympics. So
Okay.
from there, got in touch with an agent who's now my agent in these regions in Southeast Asia, and he said that it was a potential opportunity at a team called Street Pahang in the Malaysian Super League, and the coach here at Street Pahang, who's a famous Singaporean legend, Fandi Ahmad. He, I guess, knew a few people from Australia who he played with previously, and I was lucky enough. I got a pretty good recommendation from those people, and my old coach as well, Ante Juric, actually spent a year at Street Pahang in the early
Okay.
2000s as well. So sort of everything, I guess, fell in line for me
Yeah.
at that time. But there was a lot of hard work to go in between it in the 2 years previous, when there wasn't too many opportunities that presented itself.
I know, what a time for people like in that sort of age group where you are trying to make something happen overseas, or that's your big break, and then COVID hits, and it's like, wow.
Yeah,
You
it
know
was
what I
really
mean? Like,
difficult.
yeah.
Yeah, really difficult. Yeah, it was that 2 years was sort of just up in the air really. Like really had to work hard for my opportunity.
Yeah.
It didn't come easily for me, and I didn't get any, I guess, trials or anything at A League clubs at the time really. So I really had to push hard and work for an opportunity, and that meant exploring opportunities outside of the region as well. So yeah, it didn't
And I
come easy.
think, no, I know it never does. And I think I've had this conversation quite often recently, just with people in general around football, and because we have obviously, A-League's great, and it's good that we're seeing some players now, especially in the last couple of months, move from the A-League into European leagues, whether it be in Belgium, the Championship in England, a lot of guys in Scotland now. But that's the thing, is that there's only a limited amount of spots in the A-League because of the number of teams we have, the number of foreigners that might come in, and the youth team that they try and obviously develop as well. But there are so many opportunities outside of the country that maybe people aren't aware of or like that. And that's the whole reason behind this podcast is how do we find these opportunities, and how do we, hopefully get an opportunity to take advantage of one. So going back to your initial sort of playing, or your first time overseas to Hong Kong, how did you get that way? I know you said you've got an agent now, but back then, did you have an agent, or how did you get a move into Hong Kong's Premier League?
Yeah, so the move in Hong Kong came through a guy I knew very well named Francis Chung, who he basically kept a close eye on me through the youth system in the Central Coast Mariners, and I was progressing in the Mariners youth team system for a while as captain of the youth league side, and was sort of on the fringes in the Mariners setup. I was on the bench in a few A-League games and that, and just was struggling with the frequent changeover at the time with the coaching staff and everything, and it was constantly changing for me, and it was becoming really difficult. And I was at 19, and I turned him back the first time when he potentially said that there could be an opportunity for you. And, by the second time, he sort of said, are you still interested in coming over to Hong Kong? I sort of, thought that it might be the right time for me to explore another opportunity, especially in a professional league, and then started to do a little bit of research into the league and some of the teams and players over there. And, was sort of curious to try something new, because I was at the Mariners youth team system for about 10 years. So from the ages of 9 to 19, I progressed all the way through. I had opportunities to go to other Sydney-based teams and different things like that, but I stayed true and loyal to the Mariners pathway, and being a Central Coast boy, I always sort of had that ambition to play for the club at the time. So and then basically got in contact, and there was an opportunity at Hong Kong Pegasus FC, and just thought it was the right time to play senior football in a professional environment in Southeast Asia, and went over there.
So was that did that come about by recommendation? So the guy who's sort of seen you come through the Mariners youth setup obviously likes how you play. Does he get in touch with the club in Hong Kong and say, look, I've got a young Aussie kid here who's good. Do you want to have a look at him? Is there video highlights that sort of go with that initially, or do you go over there for an actual live trial, I guess?
No, I was pretty lucky at the time. I knew Francis from a pretty young age, so it was sort of a mutual connection as well. And he sort of kept a close eye on me, and he's a businessman and has worked in the Hong Kong Football Association for a long time. So he was a very well respected figure in Hong Kong football, and he passed on my highlights and CV and different things to the Hong Kong based club. And I think they were at the time the owner, who was Mr. Lowe. He was, I think, curious to try someone young and new who's, maybe trying to progress themselves for the better, and is on the up. So, and it was also probably at a good, affordable price for him as well. So, I think in the past he was trying a lot of older sort of guys. So I think he was thinking, okay, well, maybe as a foreigner, maybe trying someone that's young and, with something to prove and has a point to prove. So, it sort of eventuated for me, and ended up signing there with no sort of trial. So I was really lucky. I know a lot of other boys have had to go over there for a week or 2 week trials or 3 weeks, but for me it was just a contract came through, and went and jumped at the bit.
And did you just basically, when you first seen it, like professional contract, I'm not even reading it, I'm just going to sign it?
Well, that was it, yeah. I saw it, and I remember it was like an evening, I was with my parents, and the email came through, and Yeah, it was quite a like amazing moment, really. Like it's
Yeah.
like your first professional contract, and you've worked really hard for it. So yeah, it was a really sweet moment, but it was also trying to make sure that I did the right thing by the Central Coast, who I'd had a really good affiliation with, and
Yeah.
leaving on the right terms there as well. So yeah, it was a pretty cool moment. So I,
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. It's something I'll remember for a long time.
Oh, definitely. And would that have been your first time overseas? Had you been overseas before? Like not for football. Had you travelled much?
I hadn't done too much travelling, to be honest. I went to India with the Mariners for a under 17s tournament, an Asian tournament,
Okay.
probably 2 or 3 years earlier. And but in terms of travelling overseas and going around, I hadn't done too hell of a lot because I was, it was always for me football in the winter and cricket in the summer. So I think I spent more of my holidays in the country, New South Wales towns, playing cricket, and
Playing cricket.
places like Cowra and Ballina and Lismore and
Yeah.
all around Queanbeyan. So that was sort of my holidays at the time in
So
rural
what
New
was it
South
like?
Wales.
What was it like going from that as that's your off season and that's what you're doing, and obviously being around the Central Coast to landing in Hong Kong, and how old are you then? 19?
I was 19, yeah, first time away from home and away from, Bateau Bay on the Central Coast. So it's a bit of a world shock when you first arrive in Hong Kong International Airport and trying to work out how to actually get through to the immigration area, of the airport, because you've got to go under underground trains and different things like that. So it was a bit of a shock, and I remember the first day I was so stressed, like I was
Yeah.
so nervous, and I jumped in the car with one of the officials at Pegasus, and you're trying to start conversation, but he doesn't speak English. He only speaks
Yeah.
Cantonese. So it was yeah, it was a bit of a world shock. But I was lucky that I had Francis there, who helped me a great
Yeah.
deal, and was sort of like a father figure for me in that region at that time. So yeah, like I owed him a lot of gratitude and a great deal of basically everything for what he did
Yeah.
for me during that time. So yeah, he really helped settle me in, and his family, and yeah, made it a lot easier transition than if I was just over there by myself.
Yeah.
At the time.
'Cause
So
did you travel by yourself? So when you left Australia, did you travel to Hong Kong? Like
yeah,
your mum and dad didn't go with you, just yourself?
nah, I travelled
Yeah.
straight by myself. Mum and dad just saw me off at the airport, and yeah, so it
How were
was
they? How were they for their? Because
yeah,
it's a funny
emotional,
thing. Yeah, I was going to
really
say, like,
emotional.
from a parent point of view as well, it's like you want fantastic. You've signed a professional deal, but could you not have stayed on the Central Coast where mum and dad can still see? You know what I mean? Why do you have to go to Hong Kong?
Yeah, I think it was like that. Like I think it
Yeah.
was like mum and dad. Especially I'm the youngest, so it was kind of like for
Yeah.
them. Geez, like it's a big step for me, and
Yeah.
like obviously it's so over the moon for me and happy for me, but
Yeah.
there's also comes with a great deal of sadness, and
Yeah.
yeah, like their babies moving away from
I
home,
know.
so
And
it's difficult.
was dad better than mum? I can imagine the dad most of the time being brilliant, fantastic, best of luck, and mum's like completely heartbroken that her baby boy's
I
leaving.
think I think it might have been Dad a little bit, who was like really showed his emotions, especially at the airport. Obviously,
Yeah.
Mum was emotional, but Dad was at the airport. Look, I was emotional as well. You're leaving your parents
Oh,
and
yeah.
stuff like that, so it's a difficult step. But I guess that's transitioning from a young man to becoming a man. So
Yeah, I know. That's part of it.
yeah,
We've got two older girls. They're 20-year-old twins. They just moved out last week, and that's a bit strange. Even for mum as well. Just they're not far away. They're 15 minutes, but it's it's a different feeling and
it is.
and like that to be going somewhere where you don't speak the language. Luckily you had Francis there because otherwise, yeah, they'd be completely, I suppose, always concerned about what's going on. Text me at night time. Text me after training. Let me know you're okay.
Yeah. And look, there was a few calls, especially in the early sort of couple of weeks to my parents, making sure, like, obviously I was all okay, and I guess you're moving to, staying into a hotel when you first get there, and then moving into your apartment where you base yourself for the year. So it was, yeah, there was a lot of calls going to mum and dad, and calls about just everything, like day-to-day life, buying groceries, to, what mop should I use, or what sponges, or, how do you cook this, like it's sort of, that was a lot of calls to mum, and, she was great.
And with that initial move, how much did the club help you with that? Being a foreigner, so you said, like, obviously there's a guy at the airport that'll obviously take you to the club, but then with the apartment, the hotel, transport, do they sort of handle all of that for you and just sort of point you in the right direction?
Yeah, this is something Southeast Asia do really well in terms of everything that they do. They really take care in terms of the foreigner straight away, so they'll pick him up from the airport and I guess take it probably first to a hotel and then give the foreigner maybe time to decide on an apartment or have their own apartment base for the players, making sure everything's quite smooth and sailing for them. So they're pretty good in terms of transport. Hong Kong's transport's unreal, like the underground trains, MRTs and different things. So, and buses and everything's always smooth sailing and on time. So, sort of had a few foreigners that lived in the same apartment complex as me that helped me out through there. Okay. So, but in terms of where I'm now, I drive a car, so it's a bit different over here. But they're really good in terms of that the Southeast Asian people. The culture sort of here is very good about that.
And is that part of yours, so like your initial contract that they'll give you, so going back to the Pegasus one, is that where, do they say, all right, we'll give you X amount of US dollars or Hong Kong dollars in salary and an apartment and transport, food? Is everything covered? Is there anything you need to sort of look after outside of your contract?
Yeah. For the Hong Kong contract, from memory, it was, obviously Hong Kong dollars, and then it was an apartment included in that. So, and electricity and stuff paid for. So that was unreal because obviously the rental is very high in Hong Kong for just living space. So it's, quite very expensive. So, they covered that for you. Here it's, salary and, allowances on top of that. So there's probably a little bit more allowances than I did in Hong Kong. But so it's, like that.
I was going to say, with this new contract you've got now, so sort of moving forward to Malaysia where you are now, how much say did you have in regards to contract negotiations? So how did the move to Malaysia come about? Obviously through Ante, but was it the same process where you sort of got approved, offered a contract, and then you fly over to take it up? Or did you have any say in how much money you wanted, an apartment, allowances, or do they sort of give you a base and you go back and forth?
In that process, I let my agent do that sort of business. So Nathan Hall is my agent in Southeast Asia. So he helped me a great deal in terms of the salary. It wasn't, for me, this one was just about getting back into the region, into the Malaysian Super League, which has, a pretty good following over here in terms of teams and everything. So it was about, for me, just getting the deal done as quickly as possible, sort of just agreeing with what the agent, he directed me in the right direction, and sort of gave me, this is what I can do, and sort of let's try and get it done as soon as possible. So obviously with contracts, it's always not the first time you see the contract you're going to sign it necessarily, but it's sort of just going through the process and making sure it's all good and showing the club that you're interested in, but obviously just getting the contract in terms of the way you and your family or your agent wants it to be. So
so enough that you appreciate what they're offering you. You don't want to ask for too much more because you want to go there and prove yourself, I suppose, at the same time. And then when a potential renewal comes up, you can back it up with performances, I suppose.
Yeah, especially with me because obviously I was coming from, as you said, like Sydney Olympic in the NPL. So I hadn't, and I'd only had that 1 year experience previously in Hong Kong. So I hadn't actually, in terms of CV wise, I guess done enough to, I guess, show that, this is what I want. This is this. So for me, it was just about, they're interested. That's great. let's go with it and prove yourself, as you said. Like, come
Yeah.
here with the right mentality and the right mindset, and come here and prove yourself and do the best that you can. And yeah.
And how have you found Malaysia in regards to, so going from, say, a Sydney Olympic over there to the Super League? What's the standard like in regards to, one, football, but two, like the training and the facilities and the sort of day-to-day, I guess, pressure on training and performance?
Yeah, look, obviously it's a full-time environment. That was the big thing. I guess like going from Sydney Olympic where it's part-time, but I was lucky at Sydney Olympic because we had a really good group of players as well. So we had some very good young players from, I guess, Mariners, West Sydney, Sydney FC academies that during that COVID period, it was quite difficult. They might have been, the age of 21, 20, 22.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, the A-League academy started going a bit younger. So we found ourselves in a bit of our players there sort of found ourselves in a bit of a, period, a bit of limbo. So
Yeah,
I think at Sydney Olympic, we had a good mixture, of youth and experienced players like Roy O'Donovan and Adam Parkhouse and Fabio Ferreira and players that had been seasoned professionals for a long time. So I guess coming here, that probably helped that I played and sort of knew my game a lot better and was sort of a leader at Sydney Olympic as well. So, and had previous experience being a foreigner in Southeast Asia as well. So I think the transition in terms of a football one was probably a little bit easier because I understood Southeast Asian culture and mentality and stuff. It was just getting back to that day-to-day process of training every day in, hot, very hot weather conditions and stuff.
Yeah.
So in Malaysia, it's very hot all year round. So it was just adapting to the conditions and the environment, and the grass is a little bit different as well. Like it's not natural grass; it's like sort of cow grass type area. So it was just transitioning into that, and like the training facilities. Like Pahang are probably developing in that sort of sense at the time. They've got the stadium as well, but we also train at different places as well. So the facilities, was you've got your gym and stuff like that. So there was things that are there for you, but it was just it's different because it's just transitioning from a full-time environment to from a part-time environment in terms of still having to do some coaching or something on the side to a full-time environment where you've got to, you're a foreigner at the end of the day. You've got to perform. They're paying you to perform, so you've got to be at the, I guess, top level.
And do you feel that when you go across there? So you're a foreigner now coming into Malaysia. Do you feel you have to be better than the locals? And I suppose that's quite a simple answer of yes, because they brought you in. But do you feel that personally as well? Like, I have to be better than what they have here to stay here?
Look, I probably haven't got that mindset in terms of in that way. Obviously, I've always tried to perform at the highest possible level, and a part of that is trying to be the best player as you can in the team. But I think for me it was more just like trying to immerse myself with the locals and make sure that they can trust me. Sort of being a trustworthy and respected player and person. I think that goes a long way in terms of everything that you're going to achieve and the team's going to achieve as well. So I think if I can get the players, respecting me and making sure, this guy's going to give his absolute best every single day. That goes a long way with both your coaching staff, your players in your team, because
100%,
they in the tough moments in different games that they can rely sort of on me or and I can rely on them to give their best. So I think it was just a mutual. I guess I think it's more of a mutual. I don't feel in terms of that pressure, but I always know that there is pressure to perform, and there's always always got to be the best you can be, especially each week you're marking foreign strikers. So as a centre back myself, I've got to be on my game.
Yeah. And have there been the players and the coaching staff and everyone been really welcoming? Do you have many foreigners there? Any other Aussies or just yourself?
So we've got 7 or 8 foreigners in our team. So they've expanded the foreigners as well. So that probably helped me as well coming here in the first place. So Yeah, we've had everyone's been so welcoming in
Good.
terms of the team environment. The coach has been really welcoming towards me, and all the players and the foreigners. So yeah, it's we've got a really good environment like at Pahang. Like it's a really settled bunch of boys, and even the local players. Some of them have played a lot of games for the national team and big teams like Johor and. So
Yeah.
there's a good mixture of youth and experience in Pahang's team. So everyone's been really welcoming. So and a lot of players and foreigners have played in a lot of leagues and have ample experience both playing for their national teams
Yeah.
and in some of the top leagues around the world.
Oh, awesome. And how do you find the language barrier then in regards to, like, in that sort of team environment where you might have 6, 7 different nationalities, but you're in Malaysia? How does the training sessions run from a language point of view, and the coaches getting their point across, and all you foreigners sort of understanding and obviously getting on the same page?
Yeah, in Malaysia, the coach speaks both Malay and English, so he's really good at he's one of the best I've seen in terms of speaking a sentence in English and then turning into Malay and keeping it
Yeah.
smooth sailing and everyone understanding. A lot of the local players learn English in their schools, so they've got a basic understanding in terms of the English and
Yeah.
everything like that. So
That's good.
it's more for the foreigners. Like we've got a new guy from Uzbekistan. Like hasn't played outside of Uzbekistan, so he's only just learning English. So that's sometimes difficult for him in terms of the language barrier. But
Yeah.
we've got another guy from Uzbekistan that can sort of help him as well. So sort of
Yeah.
translate messages and different things. So it's been a lot. It's pretty good as a whole for me personally, because
Yeah.
obviously English is the main language, but maybe for the Brazilians it might be something different because obviously English is second or third language
Yeah.
that they speak. So
Yeah, so they've got to
yeah,
come across and try and get a bit of English. They'll probably hear a lot of Malay at the same time, and then obviously they're speaking their own language. So
yeah,
yeah,
I know, it's crazy.
hard, isn't it? But that's it. I mean, at the end of the day, when you're on the pitch, football does the talking. It's just like that, trying to get those bits and pieces on the training ground. And I guess the longer you're there, the easier it becomes, and you have a good understanding of what's expected and what the coaches want anyway.
Exactly, yeah, and I think it just everything takes time. Like
Yeah,
sometimes a lot of in football you don't get the time. Like you
yeah,
hear coaches or players like might not get time, but I think things do take time to adapt and to adjust. But it's making sure that I guess you do it in the quickest possible way
yeah.
to make sure that you're not falling too far behind. Both individually and as a team.
Yeah.
The way you start the season. So
Oh,
yeah.
excellent. And how have you found if there was a big change to it, but like your diet and nutrition moving from Australia to Malaysia, to be able to obviously eat well, keep nutrition, make sure you got energy to train and play, every day.
Yeah, it's obviously it's constant like hydration here because obviously you're losing a lot of sweating a lot and
Yeah,
training a lot more. So obviously I've got to replace that with good fluids. So constantly I guess drinking the water as you can see here and having good fruits and vegetables and different things like that. So so it's sort of been just making sure everything's fueled, so I can
yeah.
go again and repeatedly go. So
And
yeah,
do I have someone there that helps you with that? Do they have a nutritionist or someone that can help you with your shopping or where to get it or where to get good fruit and vegetables?
yeah. They have people that I guess we don't have a nutritionist as such at Pahang, but
Yeah.
we've got a lot of people that can help you if you're looking for vitamins and physiotherapists and fitness coaches and stuff like that can help you and direct you if you need vitamins and proteins and
Yeah.
etc. To at the chemists and different things. So yeah, people do direct you. It's I guess if you've got a problem, you can just ask, and that's a good thing about I guess Pahang. The
Yeah.
people are very welcoming and will help you. guide you in the right direction and help you find different things. And yeah, it's a very welcoming one.
Yeah, that's good. And have you found? So how long have you been in Malaysia now?
I've been here for just over 7 months, I think. 7 or 8 months. Yeah.
Quite a while. So are you finding now that you're pretty well settled? Like your body's used to the full time training. You're getting the right, as you say, fuel to keep you going. So you're quite settled in a good routine.
Yeah. Found myself in a good routine. So I think obviously at the start is an adjustment because you're moving into a new apartment, everything. You're getting a new car. You're constantly thinking about a lot of differing things.
Yeah.
And then sometimes that takes your mind a little bit off what you're mainly here for.
Yeah.
You know, especially in the early months, you're sort of here to perform and play football. So now once I've got myself settled and understand the area and the people and it's a lot easier now than I guess when you first come, because that's just a natural feeling, so.
And do you find that now that you are settled sort of, I guess, a bit off the field and you've got that routine and that you're performing better on the field in regards to you don't really have to worry about what's happening off the field, you can now just focus on football?
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. I think when you feel happy and in good in your environment and you understand the locals and the players and the coaches' messages and everything, that makes it a lot easier and you've got everything in place. So it's a lot smoother now to perform at the highest possible level than before. It's good. I think once you feel settled in that environment, it transcends onto the field.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. No, it's good. I can imagine it would be a big help. And what do you get to do in your downtime? Like when you're not training or don't have games, like you obviously would probably travel a lot for games and training.
Yeah, for Pahang, we do a lot of travelling in the season, so we're constantly sort of on the road. If we've got an away game, we're on the bus to various different places, and Malaysia's a pretty big country, so there's sort of two parts. So, catching planes and on the bus. So it's staying a lot in hotels and different things like that during the season and games. So we've probably done the hardest part of the travelling bit now, so we've sort of got a lot more home games coming up to finish off the last 9 games of the season. So in my downtime I'm studying a little bit at university, so I'm doing a little bit at university, so almost completed a bachelor of business degree. So
awesome.
Sort of trying to tick that over and make sure that's all done swiftly, and then that's one of the hardest bits, actually, probably the transition of training full time. You get a lot of spare time just making sure, talking to family and my girlfriend and all that, and recovery as well in the pool and in the gym and stretching and stuff like that. So
that's good. And as you say, you go full time, but you can only train a few hours a day and a bit of travel, so you do have a lot of time, I guess, especially if you're there yourself. So you want to make good use of it. So spending a bit of time studying or upskilling is a good way to do that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've worked a lot on, I guess, even just individually, just on my mental side, having a lot more. I guess now in a professional environment, being a foreigner, trying to work on the mental side of the game as well, and talking to different people to, I guess, better myself and make sure it's feeling relaxed and comfortable, I guess, in my own skin as well. So it's been good learning, I guess, just learning about the different mental side as well, which is vitally important.
Well, it's huge, isn't it? Especially when you get to a professional level, because everyone has, they've got the fitness, they've got the ability, that's how they've got there. So then it does become, and especially in a foreign country, it's actually one of the next things I was going to touch on was how you deal with like mental health and your emotional side of it, being away from family, away from friends, focusing on football. But as you say, so do you have people that you speak to like in Australia around that, or do you have people over there that you talk to as well from the club?
Yeah, in terms of, I have started talking to a few, like, I guess, psychologists and people like that, just to I guess, help me and guide me in the right direction. I think that's vitally important because obviously you get a lot of, time to yourself, and then so obviously thoughts are a natural part of
Yeah.
life. You know, you have thoughts about your performance, and especially when you're alone and by yourself, it's sometimes
Yeah.
you can overanalyze different things and scenarios on the field. So for me, I've really made a good effort and conscious effort to, I guess, work on myself mentally. And
Yeah.
you know, I have an amazing girlfriend as well that's really I guess helps me a lot in terms of the mental side as well, and I guess
Yeah.
opening up, because that's sort of for men as well. Sometimes we
Yeah.
tend to hold things a lot in our chest. So for me, it's important to, I guess, let that all out and make sure that you can be vulnerable to different people. So that's something that I've really worked on, and I think that's also helped transcend onto the field as well. When you feel, I guess, you don't have that, I guess,
Yeah.
something in your chest or weight of expectation, you feel freer and you can let your football do the talking, because at the end of the day, football is a game, you know, like
Yeah.
it is a game, and it's something that when we all start, we only play to, you know, enjoy, you know, make
Yeah.
friends and enjoy. So I think if you can keep that to the best you can, like make sure that you're enjoying the game and
Yeah.
not, you know, putting too much pressure on yourself to perform, I think that really does help you achieve good results. So,
And
yeah.
have you found, so just like touching on that a bit further, but just say when you first got there and obviously everything's new and it's very overwhelming, and to where you are now, like that, if you've had a bad performance or you've had a couple of bad days in training and like that, you go home, you're by yourself and you're over analysing it and you're probably getting yourself down. Do you find now that if that happens, is that when you reach out to someone and say, oh, look, I've had a terrible performance this weekend, I'm worried about it. Get it all off your chest so that you can sort of, and they'll help you start fresh tomorrow or start fresh on Monday, you know what I mean, when you go back to training?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like I think that's where I've sort of really improved. Like, instead, if you have a bad day at the office, which is
Yeah,
always happens, you know, like it's some days are good and some days are bad. So
yeah,
I think it's just getting that off your chest as quickly as possible, or and it might not be just saying it. It might be just like thinking it and feeling it and going, you know what, like, wasn't my day today, and then how can I be better? What was the good
yeah,
things about it? What was the bad things about it? And that's something I've really made a conscious effort of. Just not letting it overall affect me. So the next day I go into training, I'm clear in my mind and understand.
yeah,
Okay, well, that was yesterday. I can
yeah.
only, you know, control what's in front of me today, and yeah, see how you go.
I suppose sometimes that's a good thing of being able to just step back and say, all right, well, I'm here for a long time. I've got my contract. You're going to have bad days. You're going to have the bad performance. It is what it is, but it's how you bounce back and sort of handle that mentally to just go again, isn't it?
Yeah. And especially, we've been lucky this year, like at Pahang, we've had a really good season. So,
Yeah,
like, we're in third place, you know, third or fourth place, and that's the best the team's done in quite a while. So,
excellent.
but just recently, you know, we had a bad defeat away in Sabah, and, you know, sort of you're on a bit of a roll and everything's good. You know, with the week 6 days earlier, you've beaten Selangor in front of a big crowd at home, and you're sort of like, oh, this is amazing. Like, we're flying, we're going
Yeah,
great. And then 5 or 6 days later, you're away from home and you're suffering a tough defeat in
yeah,
Sabah. It just shows you how football can. You never master the game, you know. Like, it's
no,
always going to come back and get you. So that's the thing that I guess, beginning to understand, that you can't get too high in your emotions, or,
yeah,
you know,
or
too
too
low
low.
in your
Yeah,
emotions. You've got to keep a pretty steady median. So,
no, that's good.
yeah,
It's a
I
good way
think
to
that's
deal
been
with it as
important.
well. Yeah, I know, because as you say, you don't want to get too carried away. And then a defeat can be like really bad, really catastrophic if you're so high and then you don't know how to handle the low.
Yeah,
And what type
exactly.
of crowds are you playing in front of over there?
Yeah, like Pahang get a big support, like a good following. Probably they average from anywhere between 8 to, I'd say, probably 15,000
Yeah,
a
awesome.
game. So pretty good support. The Johor are averaging probably 15,000 plus a game,
Yeah,
because they've been pretty dominant and performing really well. But yeah, they've got some really nice little stadiums as well. So, like, there's some stadiums where it might be fit 7 to 8 thousand. So it's
yeah,
7, 8 thousand, but it's really packed and
yeah.
good atmosphere, and the
Great
drums are playing,
atmosphere,
and
isn't it? Yeah,
yeah, everything. So yeah, like, we've had days where we've had from anywhere between 10 to 14, like, against some of the teams that we play, like in the derbies and that. So, yeah, it's a pretty good following, and I think when the Malaysian Cup comes around, like the Malaysian Cup's coming up as well, so I think a lot of the local people get really behind the Malaysian sort of cup, like sort of like the Champions League Cup here in Malaysia. So I think when we play in that, the final usually holds upwards of 70,000. So it's a big following.
Big event. That's cool. And is that the Malaysian Cup? Does that include a bit like our sort of Australia Cup here, like your local teams or like your local divisions that can enter it and then
so
play against the professionals?
It starts from basically, I think, something like that, and then they, I guess, cut the teams, or like it might be from M3 or M4 type teams get an opportunity, and then they get into the round of 16, and then they play maybe a Super League team. So it is, I guess, an opportunity for them. So it's
that's
been
great.
Good for the league.
People do get really engaged in that. You notice it here as well with the Australia Cup, like when it's a Sydney Olympic, if they're playing a Melbourne City or whatever it is, you know what I mean? It's massive. It's great. And even the local teams, I think we're going into the round of 32 actually next week over here. So there's a few A-League teams drawn against NPL teams, and it's great. They're on TV. It's great to watch for the locals.
Yeah, and I remember when I was at Sydney Olympic, like we were probably just after that COVID time, we played Sydney FC in the Australian Cup 32, and on the back of very limited preparation before our season, sort of, and we had a great turnout in terms of the Olympic, like the Greek community came out and watched us, and obviously the Sydney FC fans with their active support, and it was a really good game of football as well. Like it was high scoring for both teams, and it was a really competitive game. Sydney only just got over the line against us, so it was. I think that's what beauty of football is. It's gives everyone an opportunity to, I guess, show themselves on the national stage. Yeah,
no, fantastic. And then bringing it back to, say, advice for people like yourself, now that you know what you know and you've got a little bit of experience over there, what would you say to the next sort of young kids coming through an academy, maybe not getting a go in the A-League in regards to moving overseas? Where would they start? Is it best to try and find an agent? Should they start researching some clubs overseas? What would you suggest given your experience?
I think in terms of football, like in terms of if you're in an academy sort of setup, it's maybe finding, an agent that works best for you. I guess in terms of if you're seeking opportunities elsewhere, finding the right person that, fits your mold and fits your ambitions in terms of what you're trying to achieve as well. I think that's always a good start to help you progress in the different systems and stuff like that, because, it is a very tough sort of landscape in Australia with, I guess, a lot of probably limited opportunities, and there's a lot once you're in the system, it can help you a lot easier than someone that maybe moves out of the system into an NPL sort of environment. So I think it's just finding a person that, in terms of an agency level, finding the person that's right for you. But in terms of an athlete sort of mindset, like I think, experiencing the hardships and not letting it affect your overall ambition and overall dreams, keeping a strong mind. So if you're in the NPL and you're performing really well, make sure that you're, I guess, exploring other opportunities, but also make sure that you're putting in the effort outside of your, I guess, part-time environment to make sure that you prepare your body in the best possible way. So when you enter a full-time environment or a professional contract somewhere, that you have taken and you've put in the effort, so it's an easier and smoother transition. So I think
preparation.
I think if you work hard and you really make you don't lose that drive and motivation in your head, I think good things do happen to good people eventually. It might take time, and there's a lot of difficult experiences that you have, but I think ultimately something will fall in your favour, and when that falls in your favour, making sure that you grab it with two hands and do the best you can with the opportunity. So that's my advice to people.
Yeah, definitely. I think that preparation side, especially like that, if you're training part-time, is you need to be doing the extras, because if you do get a chance to go to Malaysia, Hong Kong, wherever it is, they're full time. They're already fitness levels ahead of you. So it's doing that outside to make sure if that comes along, you're not 50% off. You might be 15% off, and you can quickly make that up rather than going to an environment and being completely out of the water. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that's what I did in terms of just looking back at myself, like something during that COVID period when training was, I guess, like team trainings and stuff like that was sort of pushed to the side, and there was a lockdown and stuff. I got in contact with a few sprint coaches and people that helped me out, and worked on my physical side a lot more. So I really trained like super hard in terms of that COVID period over the 4 or 5 months we were in that lockdown, and only could train in small groups, just making sure that I was putting in outside effort to better myself physically and mentally as well. So that really helped me. And then when I got into like the NPL season with Sydney Olympic, I'd already done the hard work pretty much. Like the games were actually the fun part. So and then obviously that transcended in having a good season, and then getting an opportunity to experience, I guess, back in Southeast Asia professionally. So I think
that's right.
That's
it's
really important.
Having that, I guess, the core, as I say, like with your core strength, but having that foundation of your fitness, so to get yourself stronger, get yourself faster, make sure that, when you make that step, that, as I say, you're nearly 80, 90% of the way there. Otherwise, I can imagine it being, you go over there, and if you haven't done any of that stuff, you might get a day or two, and they go, you know what, we've got 100 other guys to look at, jog on type thing. Yeah,
if you're not physically ready for coming, especially in Southeast Asia, where trainings are pretty difficult and quite long as well. So a lot longer, and probably not as I guess monitored as much, like in terms of other, like in Australia. Sometimes we have like with the sports science that we have and stuff like that. It's a lot monitored and tapered sometimes. But when you come to these countries, you're not physically prepared for what's coming in front of you, and haven't done prior work, then injuries can happen here, and and if you're not quite ready, then they won't waste your time.
No, I know. That's it, because there'll be others there that are ready, or they'll have locals that are physically ready. So it's a big one.
Yeah.
Spoke to a few people recently, and it keeps coming up a lot, is whether the people are going to America or to Asia. It's like, if you're not doing the foundation work here of the fitness and certain testing levels, they're just going to move on very quickly from you. So I think that's a real key point as well. Yeah,
there's a lot of turnover in Malaysia and these Southeast Asian countries as well, in terms of foreigners and players and stuff like that as well, because maybe they don't do prior work, maybe it's other factors as well that comes into it, but it's usually down to the fact that they might have an injury or something. Like things happen in football. So making sure that you give yourself and your body the best possible chance to perform at the highest possible level.
No, fantastic, mate. I could probably talk for hours, to be honest, but I'll let you kick on. But before you go, have you got, so thinking of it from like an overseas athlete point of view, and you've obviously given some tips and advice, but for yourself, is there any sort of dream destination in regards to a league or a team that you'd love to play for one day?
Yeah, like it's I guess I would always love to play back home in Australia. Like if I got the opportunity to come back home, I guess, and test myself in the A-League, because I feel like I've got a lot to show myself and the Australian public, I guess, in terms of my overall ability in Australia, where I probably haven't had a lot of opportunity just yet. But in Southeast Asia, I'm very happy at the moment over here. So I think, destinations, like Korea and Japan would be fantastic, to play in that environment. And there's, a lot of Malaysian sort of players from the Super League tend to go to these Korea K1 and K2 sort of environments. So, I'd love to, I guess, see what, you never know in football, like see what happens. And, but obviously I've got ambitions to do really well and kick on here in Southeast Asia, but also back home, I think I've got, opportunity, if a right opportunity came, and I think, I do really well in that environment. So,
Now that you've gone to Southeast Asia, can you see yourself staying there for a while? Like, is there a European dream, or now that you've sort of seen and you're comfortable in Southeast Asia because the level of football is good, you might have Japan, Korea as different opportunities rather than going to Europe? Do you think that's happening a bit more and more?
Yeah, Europe's a big one. Like Europe's very difficult, obviously. Especially I don't have in terms of like passports and I guess family background of getting like visa, like like sort of having like my parents aren't from I guess English or other European heritage. So that sometimes has its own challenges as well in terms of trying in Europe. But like Europe would be amazing. Like playing in Scotland, like countries like this would be an amazing experience to hopefully leapfrog into England or other places, which a number of Aussies are doing at the moment, going into that Scottish Premiership and the Belgiums and stuff like that. So obviously, I'll always keep the door open to go into European countries. At the moment, it's just about getting games in Southeast Asia and getting the experiences and being in an environment where I can play up to 50 to 100 games in this country, professional experience, and then if the right opportunity came in Europe or other Asian countries or back home in the A League, you're both ready physically, mentally, everything. So
it's the games, isn't it? The games are key. You have to be playing, and I think
that's it. That's important. Like everywhere, I guess I've gone, I've been lucky that I've played and have had games, and whether it's in the NPL, in Sydney Olympic, games do account to something. Experiences do count to something. So, playing and making sure that you are the opportunity that you're going to is both from a everything point of view is going to benefit you. So if you're going back into the A League, are you going to be looked at? You obviously got to prove yourself straight away. But if you're going to play the games, then you can leapfrog into your European leagues or your other Asian leagues. So
I think sometimes it can be a stepping stone like that. For instance, back to the A League, because you come out of Central Coast, you played a bit at Sydney Olympic, but now, just say in 12 months' time, you've got 100, 150 professional games in the Malaysian Super League. It's then a different proposition for A-League clubs to go, actually, this he's good, but now he's got all this experience playing in front of 10, 15, 20,000 people week in, week out. It's a very different way, I think, that clubs would look at you as well.
Yeah, I think definitely. Like, I think if they're looking at, he's played in the NPL, he's done really well. He's not training full time, so they don't really tend to take a risk in that environment. There's so many NPL players that I look at and go, geez, if he went into the A League, he wouldn't look out of place. He would be fantastic in that environment. It's sometimes just identifying, like the A League clubs sometimes probably don't tend to look into the NPL and their own backyard. They tend to look elsewhere of players that might be sitting on the bench at other A League clubs because they're in that full time environment. And it's just a different approach and different way of looking. So that probably for me, like sparked opportunities like this to go, what, like I'm going to go over here and show these people that, I can play, one in the A League if I got the opportunity, but also here and do really well in the team, and as a foreigner coming into the Malaysian Super League, like I can perform to a really good level and, as you said, amass the games and get the games, tallied up and then hopefully, A-League clubs, do look at you in a different way because you've had that professional experience more and more. One, I played in Hong Kong and then now in Malaysian Super League, which is, got some really good and strong teams. Johor made the quarterfinal of the Champions League last year. So, there's some really strong teams here. So
good quality.
Hopefully it's all, towards into the right direction, and if you just take that gamble and that risk, so
And at the end of the day, you're a professional footballer getting paid to play football and train every day. So you know what I mean? How good
Can't
is
be
it?
too bad, can it?
Exactly.
I guess that's what that's what everything you dream of and you aspire to be, and I wouldn't change it for a thing.
No. And if you were to, not that it's happening now, but what would be your steps if you thought, all right, I've had a great time in Malaysia, just say it's 2 or 3 years, I've played a heap of games, I feel like a change, and I feel like Korea, I feel like Japan. Would you just contact your agent and say, look, I want to have a look at something, can you go and see what's available?
Yeah, I think definitely. I'd probably look into my agent going, you know what, I've had 2 or 3 years in Malaysia, or 2 or 3 years in Southeast Asia. This is my second season in Southeast Asia. So just going to him and going, you know what, I need something new, or I feel like the opportunities, I'm at the right stage in my career to make that step. And obviously leave it up to him to, I guess, see what's out there for me. So for right now, it's probably just about keep developing, keep getting the games, keep getting that experiences. It's more the short term, just making sure you're doing the right things to, I guess, warrant an opportunity, to stay here at Pahang, or other teams being interested. So it's for now, it's just getting the games, getting that experience, performing the best I can for Pahang, trying to get them into that Asian sort of qualification sort of steps, and then see where it goes from there. Getting
how long do you have left on your contract currently?
So I'm halfway through my contract now. So I signed a 1 year deal here. So it's just about, like, I'm very happy here in Pahang and loving it. So obviously, if they're interested, then you talk the necessary steps and show that necessary respect. But I guess you leave that up to the people that know a little bit more than me, in terms of the business side and the agency. So
I was going to say, you're obviously going to not going to knock on their door, but so you would, if you're happy from a process point of view, you'd say to your agent, look, I'm really happy here. Can we start looking at, I've got 6 months left. When do we start looking at an extension or a new 2-year deal or whatever it may be? So you just sort of plant that seed with him, and it's whether it's one way or the other. Either I'm not happy here, can you look for something else for me? Or I'm very happy here, can you go and speak to the club on my behalf and say, look, Michael wants to stay. How do we go about it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just being transparent and honest with, I guess, your agent and I guess with the club as well, that, Pahang's done it. I guess they've taken that, I guess, risk in signing someone like me as well, from, I guess, the NPL and systems and stuff like that. So, it was for them, I owe a lot of, I guess, great feelings to the fans and stuff like that. So, just being respectful and, doing the right thing by your agent and the clubs that have shown you giving you the support and the I guess the care in taking you in the first place. So I think that's very important, I guess, for me as a human as well. So no, fantastic, mate.
Well, as I said, I could speak for hours. When my wife said to me, how long do you think this will go for? I said, maybe 20, 30 minutes, and we're touching on an hour, and honestly, you could probably speak for another hour easily. But I'll hit the stop on the record, mate. Thank you very much for joining us here on the Overseas Athlete Podcast. It's very exciting, and I'm hoping that, like that, a lot of young kids get a lot of benefit from interviews like this, and sort of can, one, give them a bit of confidence to say, I'm good. I can work hard off the field. I can make a next step to somewhere to be a pro, even if you've been knocked back somewhere before, or the doors just aren't opening. To know that there's a lot of opportunities out there, and great opportunities to live in new countries, get paid full-time money to play football, and experience loads of different things. So I really, really appreciate your time, mate. Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Chris, and hope it all goes well in the podcast. It was great chatting to you today, and I guess the sky's the limit if you work hard.
Yeah, fantastic, mate. Awesome. Thank you.